Hi, this is Diane Chapman, and I often make patches. Most of the time they are for military or police retired canine heroes for their retirement vests. One of the things that you need to understand about doing patches is there's two types of border stitches. One of them is a satin stitch. So you could easily just take a design, put a satin stitch around it, and you're done. Stitch it out and you're done. But there's another type of stitch, which is what the professional use, and it's called the marrow stitch. Now it's hard to see it on here, but these are all done with marrow stitch except for the flag. But here's a stitch file that I did a badge for my husband, and you can see the stitch around there. That's called a marrow stitch. And most embroidery programs do not have this stitch. But I'll explain a couple ways that you can get it if you're up for purchasing some other software. If you're not, you can just use a satin stitch. And the other thing with patches is people ask me what kind of material to use. And what you want to use is what the professionals use, is called patch twill, Twill. And that's what I used on these as a background. These are all done in black, although the American flag I did on white, but you can't tell because there's stitching all over it. But I didn't want to take a chance of having black show through, so I used white twill. Now you can search online for patch twill, and I'll show you a few places where you can get it. This is my favorite place. It's called Coleman and Company. I have no affiliation with them, but I've tried patch twill from various companies, and their stuff is what I like the best. And as you can see, they have patch kits to get you started with some of the equipment. So you can check them out. This is what I get. I get it by the roll. That's why I like this stuff, because it comes in a roll so I can cut any size I want without wasting too much. Now you can go to John Deere's website at Digitizing Made Easy, and they have some programs that you can purchase to get the patch designs and some graphics. Their patches have the satin stitch, it looks like, although it may be a small marrow. But you can purchase these and then insert your own information. One of the software programs that you can purchase to make your own patches is from Dime, which is Designs in Machine Embroidery. They have this software program called Patch and Applique Maker. And it has a lot of cool features and a lot of patch designs that you can start with. And they also do have the marrow stitch. So when you create a patch using this software, you can use a satin stitch, but you can just easily switch it to a marrow. Dime also offers some twill and software with blanks, design blanks. I tried their patch twill, and it's pretty nice, but it comes in a lot of different colors, and I only use black and white. And they're also pre-cut sheets, and I like getting it on a roll so I can cut whatever size I want. So you can decide what you need. Embroidery also has a smaller software program called Embroidery, and it has the marrow stitch. It's specifically for making patches. It's a very limited program, but if you want to make patches, it's a great addition and gives you the marrow stitch as well as a handful of fonts, some of them nice tiny ones, and then they give you some layout designs that you can use versus making your own. I'll demo some of these programs quickly to give you a basic idea on how they work. And while I was searching the net, I found this other place, the Embroidery store, that has patch twill. And I think this might have been the one that I tried that bragged about having backing on the twills so that you did not need to use stabilizer. But I tried that and it was really thick. The backing was really hard. Now I'm not positive this is the place, but just watch out if you get something with a backing on it. It may be pretty stiff and hard to deal with. And also, if you have Hatch software, they have a lesson on making patches, and they give you a motif that resembles the Merrill stitch. Now, I don't know if this lesson is free because I'm a subscriber. So when I go in to see if it was free, it just shows as one of my lessons available with all the other ones that I pay for. And you have to go to this program to download the motif for the font or to create the Merrill stitch. And I don't know if they give it to you any other way. So if you have Hatch software, you may have to join the academy to get this. Otherwise, get it some other way or just use a satin stitch. This is one of my programs. It's Hatch Embroidery software. So I'll show you how to make a basic patch. If you don't have Hatch, this is how I can do it, and you can play around with your software. So if you have software. So I pull out a little design, select it, change it to an outline. Click away so I'm not selecting it, and I'm going to switch to blue so I have a different color. We'll go to lettering and I'll type in my name, and that's too big. Let's try 0.2. That's good enough. Then I will select it all, go to arrange, center vertically and horizontally, and there you have basically a patch, but it's not a very good outline. If you wanted to leave this outline so that you can use it as a starting point for where you're going to put your patch, you could take this and copy and paste so you get a second one. See, there's two. And let's realign these. Okay, and then I can grab the second one and make it satin. And the reason you'd want to do two is when you're stitching it out, the first single run stitch would be hold down the twill, and then you stitch out your design, and then you do the border. You could tape the twill to the stabilizer, but having a stitch around there just kind of holds it nice and tight, so when you're stitching the letters it doesn't stretch around. Now this is the satin stitch, but they also give you a motif, and that is not it. I have the fake Merrill stitch. That's not the one I want. There you go. So as you see, that's the braided Merrill stitch. So you could just transfer this out to your machine or to your USB and then stitch this out on twill, and you got a patch. This is Design Doodler, and I haven't had much of a chance to play with this, but this software is really cool if you don't know how to digitize, because you can just dump a picture there and then outline the picture and it turns into stitches, and bingo, you got embroidery. and then you do have to toss it to your computer to save it to a USB. It works with iPads or a Windows computer. Sorry, my alarms. So you can draw out something and then add some text. And you could turn this into a satin outline. They don't have Merrill stitch on there, and don't ask me how to grab the satin stitch. I don't remember right now. But this will show you if you have Design Doodler. And this is for Viking fans. I have 5 Viking machines. This is Premiere Plus, the Ultra version. And I use this a lot, but I don't use it to design my own stuff. I do that in Hatch because it's a lot easier than this program. But I do use this for photo stitching because it does a better job than Hatch and a lot of other things. But if you have the Ultra version, you can go to the Create unit or whatever and start without a picture. Go to the drawing or paint window, and then you have to figure out how to use this. I'm not quite sure, but you can go to the Quick Create and start putting out designs and add some text. But don't ask me how to use this portion because I have not messed with it in years. And Premiere Plus does not have the Merrill stitch, so you're limited to a satin stitch border. Unless you do what I do sometimes and create a design and just don't put a border on it and save it out as a VP3, and then I just pull it into Merrill or Dime and add the Merrill border that way and save it out as a VP3 and stitch it. So this software is the Dime's embroidery. It has the embroidery tool shed, and this is the patch and applique software that goes for about $400. So I'm going to open a sample here. So you remember we did this in Hatch and there's no border on it. So I'll show you how you can add the border. So if you have software that doesn't have Merrill stitch and you buy one of these other programs that does, this is how you can deal with it. First of all, in this version you have to select it and group it. Otherwise it'll put stitches around everything. And then you need to draw an outline. So I'm going to do a short one, which is just 1. And you can see there's a second outline. It's not that smooth, so if you're familiar with the software, you could probably do this a lot better. And then you convert it to an applique. And if it was a satin stitch, it would be like that, but they do have the Merrill stitch. So you put on the Merrill patch stitch, and we turn on the regular, and that's how that would look. So then you could save this out. You would probably want to save it out in its native format, and then also save it out in the format for your machine. Now we'll do a new one, and I'll show you that they do have patches, a bunch of patch designs that come with the patch and applique software. Now I don't use a lot of this, so if you buy Dime's patch and applique, you can play with this and learn more about it. But you can grab a design and then you can modify the different parts of it. Change the stitch to Merrill and resize it and do all that fun stuff. They also have a lot of different designs that they give you in this Dime software for making patches or appliques. And cancel that. And they have all these charms so you can build your own designs. A lot of fun stuff in here. This is Embroidery software, and Embroidery has a lot of different modules you can buy separately depending on the skill and how much of their software you want to have. This is the Merrily, so it was a couple $100 just for this one unit or whatever it's called, program. So we'll go in and we'll open up this same sample. And with this, you don't have to do much of anything. All you do is pull something in there and just say add a patch. You can wrap it around to get a design. The other ones are a rectangle or a circle. But a page wrap, if you have a nice design, it'll wrap to the actual design. So if I had a bird, it would go all the way around the whole bird. So you have to be careful because sometimes there'll be open areas and it would turn into a bit of a mess. And then you can pull this down and get it exactly where you want it. And then you'd have to mess around with the different colors to see how it's going to print out, because right now it's going to print or stitch the border second, and that's not what you want. You want to be able to do the name first and then the border, and maybe not even do the red outline. Although, like I said, it's a good idea to do that to hold your twill in place. And they also give you some designs. So if you open it up and it's like this under Embroidery, you just do the drop down and get to your Merrily or whatever programs. You may have a whole pile of them on there. And you can go through and see the different designs that they offer. They don't give you as much in Merrily, but it's half the price as the other one. So if you have your own software and you just want the Merrill stitch, maybe this is all you need. And one of the things that I really liked about getting the Merrily is that they give you fonts, real tiny fonts. They give you a bunch of these itty bitty little, these are 60 weight thread fonts. So if you use this, it's going to be, you're going to be able to type some really tiny text, and it'll come out pretty well. So you see that all these Merrillys are all the stitches that you get with it. So here's a police stitch, and I'm going to enlarge it just so you could see. Well, I can't enlarge it because it's tiny, teeny tiny font. But they have the 60 weight, and then different ones like this. So they have mini, and the 60 weight would be smaller than mini. They have Coast Guard ones and different police, military designs here. So that was pretty cool, finding these itty bitty little fonts. I'm going to go through a section of screenshots real quick and just show you the process of actually making the patch. So the first thing I do, this is a patch I was doing this afternoon, and you can, this is my Topaz machine. The Topaz, Viking Topaz works great. The 50 works great for these patches. I also have an Epic 2 that I use sometimes, but I like to keep that open for bigger projects and use my Topaz, and they work great. So if you want to put a border around, at least to see where you're going to put your twill, or to hold it down, you can put a design around the border. And if this is too close, look on my other YouTube videos, because I have tips and tricks, and one of them shows you how to put little squares in the corner to make, and then tell the machine to go around the design, it'll go around wider. So here's the border. I've got twill taped on my machine and stitching out the outline. Now this is that first stitch that I was telling you about. You might want to leave in there because this is going to hold it down even more. If I just taped it and didn't do this border, which normally I don't, but I did it to show you what I'm talking about, then I just do that first outline. So now I'm going to stitch out the design. And here's my contract working dog, retired Guardians of the Night patch. This itty bitty font up here is one of the ones from Merrily, because it's so tiny. It came out really nice. I mean, it's like 2 millimeters. And that's really hard to do, get something clear. So that came out pretty well. There's the patch. Now, normally I would not do this outline, at least not this close. I would drop in my outline that puts the basting stitch around in a lot further away from the design. And then I would do this, and then I would just stitch the Merrily outline right on here. But just to show you an option, I did a little differently. So I've got the basting stitch close, and I've got the main stitch on there. Now what I did here was I cut away the basting stitch and the extra twill, so it's just like an applique. Now, if you're not very good at cutting close to stitching, this is how you may want to do it, is cut away everything before you do the border. I've done literally thousands of vinyl keychains and lots of patches, so I am actually pretty good at cutting nice and close. So normally I would never do this, but I did it this time to show you an option. Now it stitches out the border, and as you can see, it's a Merrill stitch around there. And you can also see there's a couple of little, you can see it better here, there's some spots that it missed. I use magic markers. I'm going to use a black magic marker to punch in those spots to get it all black, and I'll use a red one to punch out these little holes so it comes out much better. And some of these connecting lines I will clip, but most of them I'll take a black magic marker and do a quick swipe. But if you try to do that, you better be good at it, because if you accidentally miss, you will bleed into the lettering and you're going to be doing your whole patch over. I've got a lot of practice, so I'm pretty good at it. So here's the finished version so far. If you hear snoring, I'm very sorry, but I have a very big and very old golden retriever who is sleeping at my feet, and he's at the end of his life, so I'm not going to bother him, and he's snoring away under my feet. So when I pull away, I used tearaway stabilizer. Normally I use cutaway because I just do it all in one shot and then cut around it. But again, I wanted to show you. So when I pull it away, you'll see it's messy. And that's when you break out your lighter. And I hope you're good with it, because if you do it too long, you're going to burn. But if you take a lighter, just quickly around here, you might have to trim, like right down here. I may have to cut with a scissor to get it closer. But this paper stuff from the tearaway, just run a lighter along this and it'll clean it up. And this is the backing. I go through the back just to clean up a little bit. There were some threads hanging out, and rather than burn them off or have them hanging out, I want to cut them out so that when I put a backing on here. Now the backing that I normally do, I ask the person who wants the patch how they're going to adhere it. And I use Heat and Bond Light sewable most of the time. They also have a red package, which is Heat and Bond Super Ultra Strong. And then you can iron on the patch. But from experience, I'll tell you, if you're putting it on clothes, that patch is only going to last a few months. And if you wash it, that patch is falling off. So you're much better off sewing it. So I use the light sewable, and I just adhere it to the backing on here. This is a piece of Teflon that I use when I'm ironing this stuff on. So I cut a piece of the Heat and Bond to match that. Flip it over and just press the iron on for a few seconds. And then it looks nice and shiny and it's smooth, so the threads are all sealed in. And you can trim if you have to from the paper. After you heat it, you would take it out and trim it. And then you can give this to the person like this and just tell them to peel off the paper. And then they can actually press this onto their fabric for a few seconds just to hold it prior to sewing, so they don't have to pin it, because if you pin it, it's going to warp the patch and sewing it will be more difficult. So this light Heat and Bond will adhere to the fabric enough to be able to stitch it. And there's the finished patch. Now, if the person had, in a lot of the cases, people will have canine vests that have the loop Velcro already in place, or they've sewn it on in different places so that they can just stick patches on, and then they can change out the patches if they need to. So when I do Velcro, I only put on the hook portion and I stick it to the back of the hoop and tape it to the stabilizer, and then I do the Merrill stitch. And yes, it's more difficult, so I've got good scissors because it's more difficult to cut because you're clipping through Velcro. But that's how I do them, either sewing it on with the light or doing Velcro. So this is the final patch. As you can see, I cut out a lot of them. You can still see a little. I have to touch it up. And I touched up the black there. And I did a little cleanup on the lettering up here. So I hope this lesson helps. Good luck if you're making your own patches.